I stood outside my childhood home in suburban Ohio with 2 suitcases on a cold November evening. My mother had just slammed the door in my face. My younger sister Brianna watched from the upstairs window with a smirk. My father wouldn't even look at me. The reason? Brianna claimed I made her uncomfortable at Thanksgiving dinner by questioning her new business venture. No evidence needed. No discussion allowed. Golden child speaks. And I disappear. 28 years of being second place just became complete exile. Let me back up and explain how I got here. My name is Alfonso, and I'm 32 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my younger sister Brianna. She's 28 now, and to hear my family tell it, she's always been special. The golden child who could do no wrong. Our parents divorced when I was 8, and Brianna was 4. Mom got primary custody, and Dad became the weekend parent who gradually faded into occasional holidays and birthday cards with checks inside. When I was 12, Mom remarried a man named Gerald Thompson. He was wealthy, successful, and he came into our lives like a tornado of expensive gifts and bigger houses. But Gerald had a secret that I wouldn't discover until I was 16. He wasn't just my stepfather. He was Brianna's biological father. Mom had an affair with Gerald while still married to my dad, Thomas. Brianna was the result. The family secret everyone pretended didn't exist. I found out by accident when I overheard Gerald and Mom arguing in the kitchen late one night. I was getting water, and they didn't hear me come downstairs. Gerald said something about how they needed to tell Brianna the truth before she found out another way. Mom insisted it would destroy the family. I stood there in the dark hallway, my whole world cracking apart. From that moment on, everything made sense. The way Gerald lavished attention on Brianna but barely acknowledged me. The expensive private school tuition for her, while I went to the local public high school. The new car for her 16th birthday, while I worked at a grocery store to buy my own beat-up sedan. It wasn't just stepfather favoritism. It was a father taking care of his real daughter while tolerating his wife's other kid. I never told anyone what I heard. I wrote about it in my journal, processing the betrayal in private. But the knowledge changed me. I became quieter, more withdrawn. I focused on school and getting out. I worked my way through state college, taking loans and working 2 jobs. Brianna went to a private university 3 states away, fully funded by Mom and Gerald. She changed majors 4 times and took 6 years to graduate with a degree in communications she never used. After college, I became a high school history teacher. The pay wasn't great, but I loved it. I loved connecting with students, making the past come alive, helping kids who felt like outsiders find their place. It was honest work that mattered. Brianna, meanwhile, bounced from one entrepreneurial venture to another. She tried selling skincare products, then essential oils, then fitness coaching. Each business lasted about 6 months before she moved on to the next thing. Mom and Gerald funded every venture without question. When I suggested maybe she should get a regular job to build experience, Mom told me I was being unsupportive and jealous. 6 months ago, my apartment building was condemned. The landlord had violated multiple building codes, and the city shut the whole place down. Tenants got 30 days to vacate. I had some savings, but not enough for first month, last month, security deposit, and moving costs, all at once. I swallowed my pride and asked Mom if I could stay in their house temporarily while I saved up. She agreed, but made it clear it was temporary. Gerald barely spoke to me. Brianna rolled her eyes whenever I was around, but I kept my head down, contributed to groceries, stayed out of the way. I was saving every penny from my teaching salary, getting close to having enough for a decent apartment deposit. Then came Thanksgiving dinner 3 days ago. The whole family gathered at Mom and Gerald's house. Dad Thomas actually showed up, which was rare. Aunt Patricia came with her husband. Even grandmother Judith, Dad's mother, made the trip from Florida. It should have been nice. I brought a homemade apple pie. Brianna arrived an hour late with her boyfriend Connor Collins, a guy who did something with social media marketing. During dinner, after Gerald carved the turkey and Mom fussed over everyone's plates, Brianna stood up to make an announcement. She was launching a new business. This one was going to be different, she promised. It was a cryptocurrency mentoring program, She'd teach people how to invest in digital currency and make massive returns. The investment opportunity of a lifetime. Everyone nodded along enthusiastically. Mom beamed with pride. Gerald raised his wine glass in a toast to her entrepreneurial spirit. Connor sat there looking smug. I should have kept my mouth shut. I really should have. But I'd spent 6 months watching Brianna's previous ventures collapse. I'd seen Mom and Gerald pour thousands into failed businesses, and this cryptocurrency thing sounded off. So I asked some questions. Simple ones. What was her business model? Did she have credentials in financial advising? Had she consulted with a lawyer about the legal structure? Brianna's smile froze. Connor's eyes narrowed. The table went silent. Then Brianna exploded. She said I was attacking her, that I was jealous because I was just a teacher making a mediocre salary while she was building something real, that I always resented her success and tried to tear her down. I tried to explain that I was just asking normal business questions, that any legitimate venture should have clear answers to these things. Mom cut me off. She said I'd always been resentful of Brianna's accomplishments, that my negativity was toxic. Gerald agreed. He said maybe it was time I found somewhere else to be, that my presence was clearly making Brianna uncomfortable. I looked at Dad. He was staring at his plate, saying nothing, not defending me, not speaking up, just sitting there like he always did. Brianna started crying, real tears streaming down her face. She said she felt unsafe around me, that my questions felt like an attack, that she couldn't be in the same house as someone who hated her so much. I was stunned. I'd asked a few reasonable questions about her business, and suddenly I was the villain. Mom told me to leave the table. When I tried to defend myself, she told me to pack my things and be out by the next evening, 24 hours to find somewhere to go. I left that night. I couldn't stay in that house another minute. I called my friend Derek, and he said I could crash on his couch. He lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, but he generously offered me his living room floor. The next day, I went back to collect my belongings. Mom had already changed the locks. I had to knock and wait while she gathered my stuff and brought it out to the porch. She wouldn't let me inside. Brianna watched from the window, arms crossed, looking satisfied. I tried calling Mom over the next few days. She blocked my number. I texted Dad. No response. I reached out to Aunt Patricia, thinking maybe she could mediate. She told me to stay out of it, that I knew how Mom got when she was upset. I was sleeping on Derek's couch, feeling humiliated and confused, when my phone rang. It was Principal Angela Hart from the high school where I taught. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint about me. The complaint alleged I'd made inappropriate comments to students, that I'd created an uncomfortable classroom environment, that multiple students felt targeted by me. I was in shock. In 8 years of teaching, I'd never had a single complaint. I had excellent evaluations. Students liked my class. Parents sent thank you notes. Principal Hart said she didn't believe the allegations, but the school district had to investigate. I was being placed on paid administrative leave pending the investigation. She sounded apologetic, but the policy was clear. I hung up and stared at the wall. 3 days after being kicked out of my family home, I was now suspended from my job. The timing couldn't be coincidence. I thought about Brianna's accusation that I made her feel unsafe. The same vague language, the same lack of specifics, the same impossible to defend against claims. Someone was trying to destroy me, and I was starting to realize just how far they were willing to go. The school district investigator was a woman named Carol Morrison. She called me in for a meeting at the district office. I sat across from her in a bland conference room while she reviewed the complaint. The allegations were frustratingly vague. I'd supposedly created an uncomfortable environment, made students feel targeted, used inappropriate language. But there were no specific incidents, no dates, no named students, just general accusations that I couldn't properly defend against because I didn't know what I was supposedly defending. I asked Carol if the complaint came from a family member. She said it came through the anonymous tip line, from a concerned community member. She couldn't tell me more than that. I explained about Thanksgiving, about being kicked out, about my sister's accusations using the same vague language. Carol listened sympathetically but said she had to follow the investigation protocol regardless of timing. I left feeling powerless. How do you prove you didn't do something when nobody will tell you what you supposedly did? Then my bank called. There was suspicious activity on my checking account. Someone had tried to make 3 large withdrawals from ATMs in Cleveland, about 2 hours away. The bank's fraud detection system flagged it and locked my account. That should have been good news. They stopped the fraud. But now my account was frozen pending their investigation. They said it would take 2 to 3 weeks to resolve. In the meantime, I couldn't access my money. I had $87 cash in my wallet. That was it. Derek's girlfriend Charlotte moved in that same week. She'd been having problems with her roommate and needed a place to stay. Derek apologetically told me I could still crash there, but the 1-bedroom apartment was getting really cramped. I was sleeping on the floor now, my blankets and pillows shoved in the corner during the day. Charlotte clearly resented my presence. She made passive-aggressive comments about people who couldn't get their lives together, about people who overstayed their welcome. I contacted my old college friend Bradley, who'd gone to law school and now practiced in Columbus. I explained everything that was happening. He reviewed what I told him and said without knowing who made the complaint, it was hard to fight back. He suggested I document everything, keep a timeline, maintain professional conduct, stay visible, and above reproach. If it escalated to formal charges, I'd need a paper trail. Legal fees would run into the thousands if it went further. I didn't have thousands. I didn't have anything. My grandmother Judith called. She's Dad's mother, lives in Florida, and I'd always been somewhat close to her. But her tone was off. She said Dad had told her I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I'd become aggressive at Thanksgiving, that the family was worried about me. I tried to explain what really happened. She cut me off, said she loved me, but didn't want to get involved in family drama, that maybe I should consider getting professional help. Professional help. They were actually telling people I was mentally unstable. I wanted to scream. Instead, I thanked her for calling and hung up. The property manager from my condemned apartment building called. His name was Ryan, and he sounded uncomfortable. He said they'd discovered my storage unit had been broken into. The building was still closed to residents, but security had noticed signs of forced entry. When they checked, they found my storage unit specifically had been accessed. Boxes torn open, papers scattered everywhere. I drove over immediately. Ryan let me in through the construction barriers. We went down to the basement storage area. My unit door hung open, the lock broken. Inside was chaos. My college transcripts, old tax returns, personal letters, photo albums. Everything rifled through like someone was searching for something specific. But what? I started sorting through the mess, trying to figure out what might be missing. Then I realized. My old journal from when I was 16, the one where I'd written about discovering Gerald was Brianna's real father, about the affair, about how the family secret explained everything. That journal was gone. Ryan showed me the security footage. A figure in a dark hoodie entered the building through a side door that should have been locked. The person moved directly to the storage area, as if they knew exactly where they were going. The footage was grainy, but the person's height and build looked female, similar to Brianna's size. But I couldn't prove it was her. The hoodie obscured everything. And how would she have gotten access to a condemned building? I asked Ryan if anyone else had been in the building. He checked his logs. A contractor had been doing asbestos assessment the same day. The side door had been left propped open for ventilation. Anyone could have walked in. I stood there among my scattered belongings and felt the walls closing in. Someone had systematically gone through my personal history, stolen the one piece of evidence that could embarrass the family, and I had no way to prove who did it or why. Bradley called that evening. I told him about the break-in. He advised against going to the police. Think about it, he said. You're under investigation at work. You just got kicked out by your family. Now you want to report that your sister broke into your storage unit and stole a journal about family secrets? It looks like deflection, like you're trying to create a counter-narrative. He was right, but it felt like surrender. I was jobless, broke, homeless, under investigation, and now someone had invaded my privacy and stolen my personal property. Each day brought a new disaster, and I was running out of options. Principal Hart called me again a week later. The investigation was expanding. Now there were concerns about my social media presence. Someone had sent the district screenshots of posts, allegedly from my accounts. The posts contained controversial political statements, crude jokes, and inappropriate memes. The kind of content that would absolutely get a teacher fired. I didn't recognize any of them. I pulled up my actual social media accounts. None of those posts were there. Someone had created fake accounts using my name and photos, then sent screenshots to the school district. Principal Hart sounded more sympathetic now. She said the whole thing was starting to look orchestrated. But the school board was very concerned about judgment and character. Even if the accounts were fake, proving it would take time. My union rep, Marcus, called. He said cases like this could drag on for months. The fake accounts would need to be forensically analyzed, IP addresses traced. It was technically complex and expensive. Meanwhile, my reputation was being destroyed in real time. Charlotte gave Derek an ultimatum. Either I left, or she did. Derek was heartbroken. He loved her, and his tiny apartment couldn't hold 3 people indefinitely. He gave me a week to find somewhere else. I applied to 6 apartments. Every single one rejected me. Background checks showed the pending investigation from the school district. One landlord actually mentioned seeing concerning posts online. The fake social media was poisoning everything. Then I got an email that changed things. It was from Jackson Cooper, a former student. He'd been in my class 2 years ago and was now 19, attending community college. "Mr. Alfonso," he wrote, "I saw those fake accounts. That's not you. Everyone who actually had you as a teacher knows that. Those posts don't even sound like you. I study digital media now. I can help document the fake accounts, trace metadata, maybe figure out who made them." It was the first genuine support I'd received from anyone. A 19-year-old kid was offering to help when my own family had abandoned me. I met Jackson at a coffee shop. He showed me his analysis. The fake accounts had been created recently, all within the same 2-week period. The posts were designed to look like they'd been up for months, but the metadata told a different story. We started documenting everything: screenshots with timestamps, account creation dates, follower patterns that showed obvious bot activity. Then my bank situation went from bad to worse. The fraud investigation concluded. Yes, fraud had occurred. But the bank determined my account had security vulnerabilities. They'd restore access, but my savings was gone, $12,000. Everything I'd saved for a new apartment vanished. The bank said they'd investigate further, but recovering the funds could take 90 days. In the meantime, I was broke. I realized why. My banking information had been in the documents stored at the old apartment. The bank statements, account numbers, routing information. Someone who broke into that storage unit could have stolen it all. I was sitting in Derek's apartment, staring at my empty bank account on my phone, when I saw Brianna's social media post. Jackson showed it to me, since she'd blocked me. "Sometimes you have to cut toxic people out of your life to protect your peace," she'd written. The post had hundreds of likes. Comments flooded in supporting her brave decision. I scrolled through them. Several were from mutual acquaintances, people I'd known for years. They were all congratulating her for setting boundaries with toxic family members. My phone buzzed with messages. Friends asking what I'd done, distant relatives wanting to know my side. I tried explaining, but the explanations sounded defensive, desperate, like exactly what you'd expect from the toxic person everyone was talking about. I ran into my cousin Melanie at the grocery store. She saw me, made eye contact, then literally turned around and walked the other way. She pretended she hadn't seen me, but I knew she had. The isolation was crushing. My family had turned everyone against me without saying my name. They didn't have to. Everyone knew who the toxic person was. Then I got served. A process server found me at Derek's apartment. I signed for the papers with shaking hands. Brianna had filed for a restraining order. The petition claimed I'd been stalking and harassing her, that I'd sent threatening texts, that I'd been photographed outside her apartment building, that I'd stolen family documents. The evidence attached to the petition was damning. Screenshots of texts from my number with threatening messages. I never sent those texts, but there they were. Photos of me outside a building I'd never been to. A sworn statement from Brianna saying she felt unsafe. There was a temporary restraining order in effect immediately. I was legally forbidden from contacting any family member. I couldn't go within 500 feet of my parents' house. Violating the order meant arrest. A court hearing was scheduled in 10 days. Bradley came over that night. He reviewed the petition while I paced Derek's tiny living room. Finally, he looked up. "This is sophisticated," he said. "Someone built a case. The fake texts match your number, but they were probably spoofed through an app. The photos look real. Either someone followed you and photoshopped you into different locations, or they're manipulated images. This is calculated destruction." I felt like I was drowning. Restraining order. No job. No money. Homeless in 3 days when Derek's week was up. Fake evidence mounting. My entire life dismantled piece by piece. Jackson stayed late helping us prepare for the hearing. This 19-year-old kid, who owed me nothing, was the only person fighting for me. "Who does this?" I asked. "Who systematically destroys another person like this?" Bradley looked at me seriously. "Someone with resources. Someone with digital skills. Someone who has a lot to lose if you start asking questions." We both knew he was talking about Brianna and Connor. But knowing and proving were two different things. I moved into an extended stay motel on the edge of town. It was all I could afford with my credit card, which was already carrying a balance. The room cost $60 a night. The math was simple and terrifying. My credit limit would max out in 2 weeks. The motel was the kind of place where people lived when they'd run out of options. Construction workers between jobs. Families, one paycheck from the street. People like me who'd lost everything. My room had stained brown carpet and a flickering fluorescent light. The highway hummed in the distance. I lay on the thin mattress and stared at the water-stained ceiling. I'd done nothing wrong. Asked a few questions at Thanksgiving dinner. And for that, my family had kicked me out, destroyed my reputation, stolen my money, and gotten me suspended from the job I loved. For the first time since this nightmare started, I cried. Not silent tears, deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere I didn't know existed. I cried for the family that never really wanted me, for the parents who chose their golden child over truth, for the life I'd built that was falling apart. When I finally stopped, my face was swollen and my throat hurt. But something had shifted. The grief was still there. But underneath it was something harder, anger and determination. If they wanted to destroy me, I wasn't going down without a fight. The school district investigation closed a week before the restraining order hearing. Carol Morrison called with the results. The original complaint was anonymous and unsubstantiated. No students had come forward with concerns. No parents had corroborated the allegations. In fact, when investigators discreetly asked around, students had only positive things to say about me. Carol admitted the timing and vagueness had raised red flags from the start. The whole thing looked like someone trying to damage my reputation rather than a genuine concern about student safety. However, the district superintendent, Dr. Raymond Walsh, wanted me to take a voluntary leave of absence for the rest of the semester. For everyone's comfort, he said. I could come back next school year if the restraining order situation was resolved. It wasn't technically being fired, but I'd lose income through December and January, 2 months without my teaching salary. I'd only get unemployment benefits, which were a fraction of what I normally made. I sat in my motel room doing math. Unemployment barely covered the motel. I'd have nothing left for food, gas, or the mounting credit card bills. My situation was unsustainable. Jackson visited that evening, bringing fast food. We sat on the scratchy motel carpet reviewing evidence for the court hearing. He'd been tracking the fake social media accounts obsessively. "Whoever made these is obsessed," Jackson said. "They post constantly, respond to comments. They're maintaining the illusion full time." He pulled up his laptop. I tracked one account's friends list, cross-referenced with other accounts. Found something weird. He showed me. One of the fake accounts was friends with someone named Bry Collins. I recognized the name immediately. That was Connor, Brianna's boyfriend, Connor Collins. My heart started racing. Why would a fake account created to impersonate me be friends with Brianna's boyfriend? Jackson dug deeper. Connor's real social media showed he worked as a social media manager for a startup. His skills included digital marketing, content creation, and brand management. He posted about strategies for building online presence, managing multiple accounts, and creating engaging content. Connor would know exactly how to create convincing fake accounts, how to spoof phone numbers, how to manipulate metadata. It was literally his job. I started connecting dots. Brianna's cryptocurrency mentoring business, the one I'd questioned at Thanksgiving. I pulled out my phone and started Googling. Crypto mentoring scam, cryptocurrency coaching pyramid scheme, digital currency, MLM complaints. The results were damning. Dozens of articles about cryptocurrency mentoring programs that were actually multi-level marketing schemes, people paying thousands for generic advice and empty promises. Better Business Bureau complaints. State Attorney General warnings. I searched specifically for Brianna's business name, found her website, read through the program details. People paid $2,000 for mentorship. They got access to online videos and a private chat group. They were encouraged to recruit others and earn commission. It was textbook MLM structure. Not quite illegal, but ethically questionable and financially predatory. I dug deeper, found complaints on Reddit and Facebook, people who'd paid Brianna's fees and gotten nothing. One woman wrote about losing $4,000 and getting generic cryptocurrency advice she could have found free on YouTube. There were 17 complaints I could find. If each person paid at least $2,000, that was over $34,000 Brianna had collected. Maybe more. Several victims had tried posting warnings, but those posts were deleted or buried. Some said they'd been threatened with defamation lawsuits if they didn't remove their complaints. Jackson and I spent hours documenting everything. We created a timeline. Brianna launched her business 8 months ago, built it up through summer and fall. By Thanksgiving, she probably had a significant amount of money coming in. Then I asked questions. Simple questions about her business model and legal structure. Questions that could have led Mom and Gerald to research her program. Questions that could have exposed her scam. I wasn't just an annoying brother. I was a threat to her income stream. If Mom and Gerald realized she was running a scam, they might stop funding her lifestyle. They might demand she shut it down. They might even face legal exposure themselves if they were involved. Brianna needed me gone before I could ask more questions, before I could expose what she was really doing. But there was more. Jackson found business registration documents. Brianna's LLC was filed 6 months ago. It listed 2 members, Brianna Thompson and Gerald Thompson. My stepfather wasn't just funding her business. He was a co-owner. They'd created this together. I felt sick. This wasn't just Brianna running a scam. Gerald was involved, which meant Mom probably knew too. She'd signed as a witness on the LLC filing documents. My entire family was protecting a fraudulent business. That's why they kicked me out so quickly. Not because I made Brianna uncomfortable, because I threatened to expose their criminal enterprise. The restraining order made sense now. It wasn't about keeping Brianna safe. It was about keeping me away from the family, so I couldn't ask questions or investigate further. They couldn't risk me talking to other family members, couldn't risk me researching the business and finding victims, couldn't risk me going to authorities. My exile wasn't about golden child favoritism. It was witness intimidation. I looked at Jackson. He was 19 years old, sitting on a motel floor, helping his former teacher piece together evidence of fraud. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. He shrugged. "You were the first teacher who actually cared if I understood the material. You stayed after class to help me when I was failing. You wrote my college recommendation letter. You treated me like I mattered." He looked at me directly. "People like you don't make students uncomfortable. People like you make students want to be better. So when I see someone trying to destroy you, I help. That's what decent people do." I had to look away. This kid had more integrity than my entire family. We worked until 2 in the morning, compiling evidence, business complaints, LLC documents, victim testimonies, the fake social media account connections to Connor. Everything. Bradley was going to have a lot to work with at the restraining order hearing, but I knew the truth now. This wasn't a family dispute. It was organized crime, and my family were the criminals. They'd chosen fraud over me, chosen protecting their scam over their own son. Mom had helped orchestrate my destruction to cover up criminal activity. She'd weaponized the golden child dynamic to exile the truth teller. I didn't know if I felt more angry or heartbroken. Maybe both. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. The restraining order hearing was set for 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. I wore my only suit, the one I kept for parent-teacher conferences and job interviews. Bradley met me outside the courthouse. Brianna arrived with Mom, Gerald, and Connor. They looked polished and united. Designer clothes, expensive lawyer. The picture of a stable family protecting themselves from a dangerous person. I felt completely alone standing there with just Bradley. But I reminded myself that looking wealthy doesn't make you right. Judge Marianne Foster presided. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Bradley said she had a reputation for seeing through manipulation. Brianna testified first. She cried as she described my supposedly frightening behavior. Said I'd become increasingly unstable after being asked to leave the house. That I blamed her for all my problems. That I sent threatening texts and showed up outside her apartment. Her lawyer presented the fake text messages as evidence. Showed the photos of me supposedly stalking her building. Brianna's performance was convincing. If I didn't know better, I'd believe her too. Mom testified as a character witness. Said I'd always been troubled, always resentful of Brianna's success. That my behavior had become concerning over the past year. That the family felt they had no choice but to protect themselves. Gerald testified about my resentment toward him. How I'd never accepted him as a father figure. How I seemed to take pleasure in undermining Brianna whenever possible. It was a coordinated assault on my character. Every statement carefully crafted to paint me as unstable, jealous, and dangerous. Then it was our turn. Bradley presented my alibi evidence for the fake social media posts. School records showing I was teaching when those posts were supposedly created. Metadata analysis from Jackson showing the accounts were fabricated. Jackson testified about the fake accounts. Explained the digital forensics in terms the judge could understand. Pointed out that the accounts were connected to Connor Collins, who had professional experience in social media manipulation. Bradley questioned the coincidental timing. Why did these complaints surface immediately after I questioned Brianna's business at Thanksgiving? Why did someone break into my storage unit and steal personal documents days after I was kicked out? He introduced Helen Martinez as a witness. Helen was 53, a nurse from Cleveland. 6 months ago, she'd paid Brianna $4,000 for cryptocurrency mentoring. Helen testified that she'd gotten generic videos and no real guidance. When she demanded a refund, Brianna threatened to sue her for defamation. Helen filed a complaint with the State Consumer Protection Office. Bradley presented Helen's complaint documents. They specifically named Gerald Thompson as Brianna's business partner. The courtroom energy shifted. Judge Foster leaned forward. Bradley asked Brianna directly about her business practices. She stammered, said she provided valuable services, that Helen was just a difficult client. Connor looked panicked. He whispered something to their lawyer. Bradley revealed more. The LLC documents showing Gerald as co-owner, the complaints from multiple victims, the pattern of threatening legal action against anyone who spoke negatively about the program. Judge Foster asked pointed questions. Was the restraining order genuinely about safety, or was it about silencing someone who'd discovered questionable business practices? Mom tried to interrupt. Judge Foster told her to remain quiet or leave the courtroom. Then Bradley played his ace. He revealed my stolen journal, asked why someone would break into a storage unit to steal a teenager's diary. What secrets were in that journal that someone desperately needed to hide? I took the stand, told the truth about what I'd discovered at 16, that Gerald was Brianna's biological father, that Mom had an affair, that the family had built itself on a lie. Mom's face went white. Gerald stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Bradley asked why my family would go to such extreme lengths to exile me. The answer was becoming clear. I'd questioned their criminal enterprise. I had knowledge of family secrets they'd rather keep buried. I was a threat on multiple levels. Judge Foster called a recess. During the break, I heard raised voices in the hallway. I peeked out and saw Dad confronting Mom and Gerald. Dad was furious. He'd been sitting in the courtroom listening to everything. He hadn't known about the business scam, hadn't known the full extent of what they'd done to me. "You used me," he said to Mom. "You made me abandon my son to protect your fraud." Mom begged him to stay united. Gerald stood there silently. Dad walked away from them, came over to me. First words he'd spoken to me in months. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know. I should have listened. I should have protected you." His voice cracked. I saw real pain in his eyes. He'd been manipulated too, turned against his own child. When court resumed, the judge reviewed all the evidence. She took her time, reading through documents, looking at photos, considering testimony. Finally, she spoke. "This petition appears to be strategic rather than safety-based. The evidence of actual threatening behavior is thin and questionable. Meanwhile, there's substantial evidence of business complaints, suspicious timing, and possible fabrication of evidence." She looked at Brianna and Gerald. "Filing false police reports is a crime. So is fraud and witness intimidation." The restraining order petition was denied, permanently. Judge Foster warned Brianna that if she filed another frivolous petition, there would be consequences. She also noted that I appeared to have grounds for a defamation lawsuit, that I should consider pursuing legal action against those who'd created fake accounts and spread false information about me. Court adjourned. Outside, Connor and Brianna practically ran to their car. Mom wouldn't look at me. Gerald walked past without a word, but Gerald paused near Bradley. "Your client better watch himself," Bradley responded calmly. "That sounds like witness intimidation. Would you like to repeat it for the court recorder who's standing right there?" Gerald's eyes widened. He hurried away without another word. I stood on the courthouse steps, feeling sunlight for the first time in weeks. The restraining order was gone. My name was clearing. The truth was coming out. Then a woman in professional attire approached me. She held out a business card. "Mr. Alfonso? I'm Special Agent Ruth Daniels with the FBI White Collar Crimes Division." My heart stopped. She'd been in the courthouse observing a different case. Overheard my hearing. The cryptocurrency mentoring scheme I'd described matched the pattern of a larger investigation they were conducting. Agent Daniels asked if I'd be willing to provide information about Brianna and Gerald's business operations. They'd been tracking multi-level marketing crypto fraud rings. My family's operation fit the profile perfectly. If I cooperated, I might help shut down a larger network, help recover funds for victims, bring actual criminal charges. But cooperating with the FBI meant testifying against my own mother and sister. It meant permanently destroying any chance of family reconciliation. I looked at the business card, then at Bradley, then back at Agent Daniels. "I have a lot of information," I said. "When can we meet?" I met with Agent Daniels the next day at the FBI field office in Columbus. Bradley came with me as counsel. We sat in a conference room with gray walls and too bright lighting while I told them everything. I brought documentation, the LLC filings, victim complaints, screenshots of Brianna's program promises, evidence of the money trail, everything Jackson and I had compiled. Agent Daniels listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, she revealed the bigger picture. Gerald and Brianna's scheme was connected to 9 other similar operations across the country. All promised cryptocurrency mentorship, all charged thousands in fees, all delivered little value. Together, they defrauded over 200 people for roughly $400,000. My information helped connect the dots, showed the business structure, identified the key players. Over the next week, federal agents moved quickly. They interviewed Helen Martinez and other victims, subpoenaed banking records, traced money movements through multiple accounts. What they found was worse than I'd imagined. Gerald had been using his legitimate business to launder money from the crypto scam, moving funds through shell companies, hiding income from the IRS. Mom had signed documents as the LLC treasurer. She was legally implicated in the fraud and money laundering. The IRS got involved. Tax evasion charges were likely. Word spread fast that I'd cooperated with federal investigators. Aunt Patricia called me a traitor, said I'd destroyed the family. Extended relatives took sides, and most fell on Team Brianna. Only Dad stood with me. He and Mom officially filed for divorce. Mom blamed me for destroying her marriage, as if I'd forced her to commit fraud. But my own life started improving, Principal Hart called. The school district had reviewed my case again. With the restraining order denied and the investigation exposed as baseless, they wanted to reinstate me immediately. Superintendent Walsh personally apologized, said I could return before winter break if I was ready. I walked back into my classroom 3 weeks before Christmas. Students cheered when they saw me. Several came up after class to say they'd known something was wrong, that the online posts hadn't sounded like me. Jackson visited during my planning period. We didn't say much, just shared a look that said everything. We'd fought together and won. Teaching felt like coming home. This was my real calling. These kids needed teachers who showed up, who cared, who modeled integrity. I could do that. The bank fraud investigation concluded with Connor's arrest. Under questioning, he confessed to hacking my account. He'd used information from my stolen documents to access my banking, transferred $12,000 to fund his and Brianna's lifestyle. The bank restored my money plus damages. I had $14,000 deposited back into my account. I used it to rent a real apartment. Nothing fancy, a 1-bedroom in a quiet complex near the school. But it was mine. The first night I slept there, I cried again. Not from pain this time, from relief. Support came from unexpected places. My teaching colleagues hosted a welcome-back dinner. Derek apologized profusely for having to kick me out. He and Charlotte had broken up, and he felt guilty about choosing her over me. Old college friends reached out after hearing my story. The local newspaper covered the FBI investigation, and I was portrayed as the whistleblower who'd exposed a fraud ring. Community members recognized me at the grocery store, offered words of support. One parent anonymously paid 3 months of my rent, left a note that said, "Thank you for teaching our kids integrity." The federal indictments came down in January. Gerald was charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. Brianna was charged with wire fraud and conspiracy. Mom was charged as an accessory and conspiracy. Connor faced computer fraud and identity theft charges. All 4 faced significant prison time if convicted. Trial was set for 8 months away. Mom called me from her lawyer's office. First time we'd spoken since I was kicked out, nearly 4 months ago. She begged me to recant, to say I'd been mistaken about everything. "Please, Alfonso, I'm your mother. They'll send me to prison." I asked if she'd thought about me when she threw me away, when she helped orchestrate my destruction to protect her crimes. She cried, said she was protecting her family. "I am your family," I said. "I was your son. You chose fraud over me." She said Brianna needed them, that she was sensitive, fragile. "She's a criminal," I responded, "and you enabled her. You chose her comfort over everyone she stole from, over me, over basic honesty." Mom said I was destroying the family. I told her the family destroyed itself. She hung up. I blocked her number afterward. Bradley said I'd likely be called to testify at trial. I needed to maintain boundaries. A week later, Brianna showed up at my school. She arrived during dismissal, when students were leaving. Confronted me in the parking lot while kids recorded on their phones. She screamed that I'd ruined everything. That her arrest, the divorce, Gerald's business collapse, it was all my fault. I stood there calmly while she raged. Students watched. Teachers came outside. "I was building something," she yelled. "You were just jealous. You were stealing from people." I said quietly, "That's not building. That's crime." She slapped me across the face. Hard. My cheek stung and my eyes watered. Multiple students caught it on camera. School security intervened. Campus police were called. Brianna was arrested for assault. She'd violated her bail conditions by confronting me. Bail was revoked. She was sent to county jail to await trial. I pressed charges. Bradley said it showed a pattern of violence and harassment, would help at trial. That night, I got a certified letter from an estate attorney. My grandmother Judith had passed away suddenly. Heart attack. She was 76. The letter said she'd updated her will 2 weeks before her death. She left me everything. Her house, a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, worth about $180,000. Her savings, $60,000. Personal items and furniture. Attached was a handwritten note. Alfonso, I was wrong. Your father told me everything after the court hearing. About the fraud, the setup, your courage. You stood for truth when everyone else chose comfort. This doesn't fix what I said to you, but maybe it helps you build the life you deserve. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. Use this to be happy. Love, Grandma Judith. I sat in my apartment holding that letter and sobbed. Judith had contacted Dad after the restraining order hearing. He'd explained everything. The scam, the fake accounts, my exile, my fight to clear my name. Judith had spent her final weeks understanding she'd been manipulated. She'd cut Brianna and Mom from her will entirely. Given everything to me. I inherited the house where I'd spent Sunday afternoons as a child, where Judith taught me to play chess and told me education mattered, where she made chocolate chip cookies and let me help in the garden. The grandmother who'd called me a traitor had spent her last act making amends, but the gift came with weight. Mom and Brianna would hate me even more. The family rift was now permanent and public. Everyone would know Judith had chosen me over them. I stood in Judith's empty house, surrounded by furniture I remembered, photos on the walls, her reading chair by the window. She'd chosen to finally see me, to acknowledge what I'd endured. Even in death, she'd validated my truth, but I wished she'd done it while she was alive. So I could have thanked her, so I could have told her I understood, so she could have known I forgave her. The inheritance meant I was financially stable, but emotionally, I was exhausted. The trial still loomed. More testimony, more confrontation, more family destruction. I wasn't sure how much more I could take. 8 months after the courthouse confrontation, the federal trial began. It lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: bank records, victim testimonies, digital forensics, showing the fake accounts Connor had created. I testified for a full day. Walked the jury through everything. How I'd questioned Brianna's business at Thanksgiving. How I was kicked out hours later. The systematic destruction that followed. The fake social media. The stolen money. The restraining order built on lies. Defense attorneys tried to discredit me. Suggested I was a disgruntled family member seeking revenge. But the evidence spoke louder than their theories. 23 victims testified. People who'd lost thousands of dollars to Brianna's promises. A single mother who'd invested her savings hoping to provide for her kids. A retired teacher who'd lost his pension money. A young couple who'd delayed buying a house because they believed Brianna's guarantees. Their stories were heartbreaking and damning. Connor turned state's evidence, testified against Brianna and Gerald in exchange for a lighter sentence. He detailed how they'd planned the scheme, how Gerald had provided business infrastructure and connections, how they'd scrubbed negative reviews and threatened victims into silence. Mom took a plea deal, agreed to testify against Gerald, showed remorse in court, said she'd been manipulated and scared, got probation and restitution instead of prison time. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the verdicts were unanimous. Gerald, guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, conspiracy. Brianna, guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Gerald got 7 years in federal prison. Brianna got 4 years. Connor got 18 months plus restitution for his cooperation. Victims were awarded restitution from seized assets. Gerald's legitimate business was liquidated. Their house was sold. Everything went to repay the people they'd defrauded. I sat in the courtroom watching Gerald and Brianna led away in handcuffs. Mom cried silently in the back row. Dad sat next to me, his hand on my shoulder. Judge Foster addressed the court before adjourning. She specifically mentioned my testimony. Mr. Alfonso's willingness to come forward prevented further victims. That takes character. It takes courage to stand against family when family is wrong. This court commends his integrity. As they led Brianna past me, she stopped, glared at me with pure hatred. "I hope you're happy," she hissed. "You destroyed us. You destroyed yourselves," I said quietly. The marshals moved her along. Mom rushed out without looking at me. Gerald didn't say anything, just stared straight ahead as they took him away. Outside the courthouse, reporters wanted statements. I declined. Bradley handled the press, said I was grateful for justice, and hoped the victims could find closure. Dad and I went to lunch at a quiet diner. We didn't talk about the trial, talked about normal things: baseball, his garden, my students, small talk that felt like healing. Over the following months, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I sold Judith's house, used the money to buy a smaller place near my school. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, quiet street, nice neighbors. I planted a garden in the backyard like Judith had taught me. Tomatoes and herbs, flowers along the fence. It was peaceful work that cleared my mind. Dad visited regularly. We were rebuilding our relationship slowly, watching football together, grilling on weekends, talking about nothing important while healing everything that mattered. He admitted he'd been absent most of my life, that he'd chosen the easy path of believing Mom instead of questioning, that he'd failed me as a father. "I'm trying now," he said one Sunday afternoon. "I know it's late, but I'm trying. That's all I need," I told him. "Just show up. That's enough." My teaching career flourished. The district named me Teacher of the Year. Students had nominated me, citing my integrity and compassion during difficult times. I started a mentorship program for students facing family difficulties, used my experience to help kids navigate dysfunction, taught them that family problems aren't their fault, that they can build their own path. Jackson volunteered as a peer counselor. He was thriving in college now, studying digital forensics. Said I'd inspired him to use technology to help people instead of hurt them. The local university invited me to speak about ethics and standing up for truth, about what it costs to do the right thing, about rebuilding after everything falls apart. Aunt Patricia reached out 6 months after the trial, sent a letter apologizing for calling me a traitor, said she'd been scared of Mom's reaction, asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed. We started meeting monthly, slowly repairing what had been broken. She told me stories about Mom before Gerald, before wealth and status became everything. "Your mom used to be different," Patricia said. "Kind, honest. Gerald changed her. Money changed her. She lost herself." I appreciated hearing that. It didn't excuse what Mom had done, but it helped me understand. I started therapy with Dr. Sharon Wade, processed the trauma of being scapegoated, of family betrayal, of systematic destruction. Dr. Wade helped me understand the family dynamics: golden child, scapegoat, enablers, how the system protected Brianna from consequences her whole life, how my boundary setting threatened that system, how they expelled the threat instead of addressing the problem. "Being the family scapegoat wasn't your fault," she told me. "You were assigned that role. Your job was to absorb blame so others didn't have to face reality." Healing meant accepting I couldn't fix people who didn't want help, that loving someone doesn't mean tolerating their abuse, that family is supposed to protect you, not sacrifice you. I started dating again. Met Rachel at the library. She was a children's librarian with kind eyes and an easy laugh. She knew my story, didn't judge. We bonded over books and quiet evenings, simple pleasures. She introduced me to her family. They welcomed me warmly. Her dad joked that anyone who stands up to the FBI deserves respect. Being with Rachel felt different. She valued me, listened to me, treated my feelings as important. It was the first healthy relationship I'd ever had. Dad retired early, moved to an apartment 10 minutes from my house. We saw each other twice a week, took a camping trip together, first since I was a kid. Around the campfire, he looked at me across the flames. "You're the bravest person I know," he said. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." I cried. Those were words I'd needed for 30 years. Mom completed her probation, did community service at a nonprofit helping fraud victims. Court-mandated irony. She sent me a letter after a year. I understand if you never forgive me. I chose wrong. Every day I live with that. You were right. I was wrong. I hope someday I can tell you I'm proud of you, and you'll believe me. I didn't respond. Therapist said forgiveness is a gift I give myself when I'm ready, not something I owe anyone else. Maybe someday, but not yet. Brianna sent me letters from prison. First one came 18 months into her sentence. No apology, just blame. Said I could have stayed quiet, that we were family, that I'd betrayed her. I read it once, threw it away, asked the prison to block further correspondence. Some people never accept responsibility, never understand. Bradley's words echoed in my mind. That's not your burden to carry. 2 years after being kicked out of my childhood home, I hosted Thanksgiving. Small gathering. Dad, Derek, Jackson, Rachel, Aunt Patricia, Dr. Wade. We cooked together, laughed, shared what we were grateful for. I looked around the table at these people, my real family, not connected by blood or obligation, connected by choice, by showing up, by telling truth. Dad raised his glass. To Alfonso, who showed us what integrity looks like. Everyone raised their glasses. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, belonging. After everyone left, I stood in my backyard under November stars, thought about the journey, being kicked out, destroyed, rebuilt. Judith's voice echoed in memory. Use this to be happy. I was happy. Not the happiness I'd imagined, not the family reunion or perfect reconciliation, but real happiness built on truth. Happiness was teaching kids who needed me. Dad's visits, Rachel's hand in mine, a home that was truly mine. Peace earned through courage. I thought about everything I'd learned. That family isn't just biology. Real family shows up, supports, tells truth even when it's hard. Golden children often become broken adults because nobody held them accountable. Being the scapegoat prepared me to stand alone when necessary. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. But rebuilding on a foundation of truth creates something stronger than what broke. My students saw me differently now. They knew I'd chosen hard right over easy wrong. That lesson mattered more than any history test. Monday after Thanksgiving, I returned to my classroom. A student raised her hand. Mr. Alfonso, do you ever regret what you did? Turning in your family? I paused, considered carefully. Every day I wish they'd chosen differently. But I don't regret standing for truth. Sometimes love means holding people accountable, even when they hate you for it, especially family. The student nodded thoughtfully. Bell rang. Class dismissed. Jackson stopped by after school. You doing okay? I smiled. Yeah, for the first time in a long time I really am. He left. I graded papers while the sun set through classroom windows. My phone buzzed. Rachel asking about dinner. I responded. Packed up. Headed home. Home I'd built from ruins. Life I'd earned through courage. Peace I'd found through truth. That was the real victory. Not the convictions or the inheritance or the vindication. The victory was walking to my car, looking back at the school building, seeing my classroom light still glowing, knowing I'd return tomorrow. Keep showing up for kids who needed adults who kept promises. That's who I was now. Not the rejected son or exiled brother. The man who stood up, who stood firm, who built something real from wreckage. Sometimes family kicks you out. Sometimes you have to let them go. And sometimes, the life you build without them is better than anything they could have given you. That's not bitterness. That's freedom. I drove home as darkness fell. My little house with its garden and quiet street. Rachel would be there soon. We'd cook dinner, talk about our days, normal life, beautiful life, the kind of life you build when you refuse to compromise your integrity, when you choose truth over comfort, when you stand alone if necessary. I'd lost a family, but I'd found myself, found my strength, found people who valued truth as much as I did. That trade was worth it. I pulled into my driveway, saw the porch light Rachel had turned on, welcoming me home. Home. Finally. Truly. Home. That was karma. Not revenge. Not destruction. but building something real and good from the ashes of what was broken and false. I walked inside. Rachel smiled from the kitchen. Dad would visit Sunday. Jackson was thriving. Students needed me tomorrow. This was my life now. Built on truth, rooted in integrity, surrounded by people who chose to be there. Mom and Brianna were in prison. Gerald was locked away. Connor was paying restitution. The people who'd tried to destroy me had destroyed themselves. I'd simply refused to go down with them. And in the end, that refusal saved me. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where family expected you to stay silent about something wrong? Where speaking truth cost you relationships? How did you handle it? Did you speak up or stay quiet? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in standing up for what's right. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the courage to stand for truth, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. Because integrity isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when everything's on the line. When choosing truth means losing everything, that's when character shows. Take care of yourselves. Stand strong. And remember, sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. Until next time,